Building Officer at Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum. And now we are going to come to our special session on role of African youth in the community and economic development. So we have two special guests today with us from the African region. They are both the servant of ICYF, if I can say that, and then they are also the servant of the African youth. Let me introduce our first speaker of today, Mr. Lamin Darbo. He is the Vice President of Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for the African region. Lamin Darbo is a governance expert, scholar, and youth inclusion specialist. He is the Vice President for African region at Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum. He also served as the Executive Director of the Gambia National Youth Council, where he provided strategic policy, programmatic advice to government, especially around the formulation, review, and implementation of national youth policy of the Gambia. He is the experience in program management, social mobilization, and institutional capacity strength. Through his transformational leadership, the Gambia National Youth Council was reformed and repositioned as a legitimate voice of the young people in Gambia and leading the model National Youth Council in Africa. He is interested in migration, employment, gender, child protect, governance, and human rights. Darbo holds a higher teaching certificate from the Gambia College School of Education in 2007, bachelor's degree in development studies from University of the Gambia in 2012, and now pursuing one-year Master of Arts degree in migration and global development at the University of Sussex, Brighton, UK, as a Chevening scholar. So, delegates, please welcome Mr. Lamin Darbo for his presentation. Mr. Lamin, are you with us today?
Yes, thank you. I'm with you, Anas.
Yes, Mr. Lamin, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And first of all, let me say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh to all of you, brothers and sisters from different countries that are present here this afternoon. Allow me to also extend special regard and appreciation to ICYF for this opportunity to mobilize and create such a platform for young people across the continent and beyond to interact and share ideas as to how do we harness the potentials of young people, but also how do we contribute to community development and economic development in our respective countries and within the Ummah. Today, my discussion is going to go towards looking at the role of African youth, in community development and also in economic development. Talking about community development and economic development might not be quite new to all of you as distinguished delegates here. So this presentation or discussion, so to speak, will be a reminder as to what we already know and also create opportunity for a very detailed conversation as to how do we move forward, looking at our continent, Africa, but of course also the Ummah. So when I look at community development, I'll be focusing more on social and cultural issues. Of course, these are areas that young people have a greater stake, and we need to take up our responsibilities to ensure that our social systems, our cultural perspectives are aligned and to also support our development, but to go further to also support the overall well-being of our communities and our member states. When I talk about the economic development, I'll be looking more at well-being and of course, issues around employment and employability of young people in Africa, just to ensure we are able to have a perspective into issues of employment and employability. So, but before we go into the key topics, in terms of community development and of course in terms of economic development and the role of youth in that, let's look at one fundamental issue that brought us all together here, and that is youth. Why do we find it very important to talk about youth? What is so special about young people, especially young people in Africa? So if you look at some basic statistics, you will agree with me that youths are very important segment, a very important demography, within our society and the member states. For example, according to, when you look at the definitions of young people, we can say it's from 40 in the OIC. In the AU, they are looking at around 35 years, and within the UN overall, we are looking at around 24 years. But in Africa, to be specific, youth constitute more than 60% of the population. This is a huge number. And the average age of youth in Africa is 19 years, making it one of the most youthful continents in the world. This youthfulness comes with its challenges, but of course, it also comes with great opportunities that we need to take into account. Youth population in Africa accounts for over 20% of the world population of youth, and is projected to increase to over 42% by 2020 by United Nations, which means we are expecting population growth, and especially among the young people of this continent. There is over 1.7 billion youth, 15 to 29 years in the world. 500 million of this number, 28% in estimation, about 28% of this number resides in OIC member countries. This is, again, a huge challenge to respond to the needs and aspirations and concerns of this population, especially when our systems are not ready or when our systems are not responsive to their needs. But of course, it's a huge opportunity, in terms of talents, in terms of skills, in terms of production, in terms of consumption. It's a huge opportunity that we can leverage on as OIC member states. You will agree with me, all of you, like other young people out there, are also the engine of growth, for social and economic development in our respective member states. If we look at economic development or even social development, when more than half of the population, 60%, are not supported, are not empowered, do not have the confidence, then we cannot claim that community to be developed, or we cannot claim that community to have growth, because you are more than half of the population. So your participation in community development, your role in the participation in the economic development is paramount to socio-economic development of any member states. And this being the reason why it's important for us to effectively respond to the needs and aspirations of young people. While we look at that, we need to look at some key issues when we talk about socio-cultural or community development. Most African countries are communal in setting. Our societies are communal in setting. You have people living in single parents family, but you have others living in nucleus family, but majority are also living in extended families, especially in the sub-Saharan African area. But these family settings are expected to prepare us to not only become responsible citizens, responsible family members, but also as agents of change in the society. That's why our parents and family invested in us to go to school, but also, inculcate in us very good moral values, so that we can become the bigger and better ambassadors of our families, our society, and our countries. But we have seen in the recent past a growing departure from this extended family system to more nucleus, and of course, other family systems. And you'll agree with me, the dynamics of a global economic system has impacted also on our family system, especially in Africa. Now there are questions as to the value, in terms of wealth versus our values and principles. Values and principles from a cultural perspective, or even values and principles as a Muslim. So looking at this to a greater extent, continue to put pressure on our moral calibrations as young people, but of course also, as we interact with the technologies and digitalization in different ways and different forms. In our social settings in Africa, or in our community settings, we have also seen, to a greater extent at macro level, ethnic tensions, violence. We have also seen interreligious tensions, and we have also seen tensions around gender. And of course, one very important trend is irregular migration. People moving from one area to the next, people moving from one country to the other. But in fact, international migration, people moving from one country across borders, to other countries, to even continents. And we have seen others are induced, let me say, by violence, wars from Muslim countries. But of course, others are actually being induced by poverty, climate change, and you name them. So these are all challenges that are challenging our community and social systems that are existing, that are in place to guide us, to support us, and to help us develop and contribute to our socioeconomic realities. On the economic side, looking at well-being and livelihood, there is, of course, in Africa, this is an open secret, widespread poverty. There is a debate whether this is natural poverty or it's human-induced, artificial poverty, understanding the abundant natural resources that we have in our communities and our countries, from diamonds to golds to natural environment, and you name the different mineral resources that are present in Africa. There is also a challenge of unemployment and underemployment. You have a lot of young people who are without jobs. Some complete schools, they do not have jobs. Some are in employment, but they are not, remunerated as expected. And as a result, this has led to, discontentment. There is also a mismatch. The policymakers make policies that do not reflect the realities of young people. And we must also admit the fact that in some of our countries, there are corruptions. And instead of the little resources that are available to help us as young people, as communities, as families, to help ourselves, to grow, to also become an example that we can showcase to other countries, in fact, to help us, practice our religion as expected. We have seen those mega resources being taken by a few individuals. And this is reducing state capacity to deliver service to its citizens, be it social services and, of course, economic services. But another important issue is education. Most African countries, for example, I would usually take an example of the Gambia, where I came from. I would say it's until 1998 that we have our first university. State-owned public university. So most African countries are still grappling with the issue of providing quality education to our citizens. Not just the conventional education, but in fact, moving to provision of production skills that will enable these young people to harness their potentials and be able to contribute to the socioeconomic development of their country. Looking at these key highlights will project to us as if Africa, everything is gloomy and everything is in shambles. But that's not the case. Despite all these challenges, there are huge opportunities that we can leverage on. Leverage on our population, for example, as number one. When we have this number of population, they are quite youthful. All we need to do is how do we invest into these young people so that they all become productive citizens, then we can harness the demographic dividend. But failure to invest in these young people, instead of them becoming asset to us, they might become a liability. So the population is an opportunity, but we can only turn it to asset, a productive opportunity, if we increase investment in education, giving young people the productive skills that they can actually have their livelihood, but also helping these young people to participate in the governance process. We are talking about over 70, close to 70% of or the average age being 19. But the average age of presidents or leaders in Africa is 64. This is a huge gap. So it's not proportionate. You look at our parliaments, you look at our National Assembly and elsewhere, in terms of governance, in terms of policy interplay, we still have limited young people participation. Maybe this is something we can also look at. But again, at institutional level, we have ICYF, for example, today, within the OIC, focusing mainly on young people. So it is an opportunity to harness the potential of ICYF, its platforms, to mobilize and organize young people in OIC member states, especially in Africa, to enable, to break structural barriers, and of course, to ensure that the potential of young people are properly harnessed within the OIC member states. Another institutional platform is the Office of the Youth Envoy, the African Union, which is a convener. We could also engage to ensure that we are able to participate high-level policy and dialogues so that our views and aspirations could be on board. Another opportunity we also have is the fact that today, the youth technology has provided us a huge space that we don't need to be meeting to have our ideas exchange. We don't need to be at the same place to ensure we make the difference. We need to harness the potential of technology. And again, there's African diaspora in Asia, in Europe, in Americas. These people have gained enormous experience in the other parts of the world. So we can also harness brain gain, skills, and knowledge transfers to ensure that Africans are able to transform this economy. Also, there is Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which can enable us to trade among ourselves to address the issue of the employment and underemployment deficit. But aside that, we can also volunteer in our communities. And I think this is an opportunity. We have more ready young people. Today, when you make a call for participation, you have a lot of young people coming up who want to volunteer in their communities, helping these young people come together to use their talents and capacities to reinforce the existing positive values in our society, and of course also contribute by setting up their own small and medium enterprises will help us transform the economy and move out of poverty. We can also look at some few recommendations, and that is us, me, you, and other young people in Africa need to find ways to better organize and better mobilize and to speak out and participate in policy making and governance processes. We also need to take self-initiatives that can help us, one, utilize our knowledge and skills, but two, also uplift our families, our communities, and other underprivileged people in our societies. Young people in Africa equally need to provide technical and productive skills so that they can be into either production, manufacturing of raw material within their environment. We all know there is job on the value chain, especially agricultural value chain. But it's not providing that blue collar or white collar job in the value chain for us if all our products, raw material, are exported outside the continent. So young people need to have the prerequisite skills that they could utilize to ensure that these raw materials are processed in this continent and they can be able to gain jobs along the value chain. Provide access to finance for African youth, for their startups and SMEs. And also enhance intra-African and, of course, intra-OIC mobility, where young people can actually go move to the other countries, learn, share experiences, get more connected, and be able to harness the potential. And I must also add that it's quite prudent that we are able to train our young people on preventive diplomacy, which you are all doing today in the model OIC and the other diplomatic events, so that we'll be able to use our skills to dialogue, to network, to negotiate in solving our problems than the constant frictions and confrontation we have seen between young and the old in our OIC member states. Basically, these are some few points I want to share for now. Time is not on our side to allow my co-presenter also to share something. But I want to say that the opportunity we have today in this 21st century in Africa far outweigh the challenges that we have. All it needs is for us as young people to look at three critical issues. That is, one, mobilize and organize ourselves and embark on advocacy to change issues that are affecting us and to harness the opportunities that are available. Of course, also to ensure that accountability, not just for ourselves, but also for our communities and leaders, because this is our future and this is about ourselves and our continent and our countries. And thirdly, to take action, be self-initiative, be creative, and harness the potential of technology. That being said, I will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam, Mr. Lamin Darbo. Thank you for your insightful speech for the situation of African youth and especially for Gambia, West African region. Our next speaker is Mr. Halilu Musa. He is the coordinator of the NGO GEDD. For 20 years, he contributed to the promotion of young people and their socioeconomic integration in Niger. The NGO GEDD is a member of several networks at national and international level. They are one of the founding members of ICYF since 2004. So on behalf of Mr. Musa Halilu, I would like to invite Mr. Ahmed from Niger, his assistant, to deliver his speech in English.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to talk to you about the role of African young in the community and development economic. Okay, especially on sustainable development agenda in 2013, set 17 sustainable development goals broken down into 169 targets to meet the challenge of globalization based on the three components: environment, social, and economic of sustainable development. A big question remains how to put them in the place and who will be the main actor of this 2013 agenda. Nowadays, the world population.
You may proceed, Mr. Ahmed. Yeah.
Okay. Nowadays, the world population under the age of 13 exceeds 4 billion people. According to a study conducted by the United Nations, 89.7% live in emerging and developing countries, especially in the Middle East and Africa. Therefore, it is essential and legitimate to question the growing role of African youth in the sustainable development of the continent. Entrepreneurship is a formidable weapon in the fight against youth unemployment. A great entrepreneurial energy has taken hold of the African continent. We see the creation of many startups every day. The youth people decide to engage in self-employment in order to solve the lack of unemployment. Many of these young entrepreneurs have very limited means compared to their ambition, but the journey is there. It just needs government attention to encourage the creation of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to reduce the youth unemployment rate. The study of the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor published in 2015 according that 16% of young Africans surveyed aged 18 to 34 say they are optimistic about the economic potential of entrepreneurship and believe they have the skill and knowledge required to start a business. Many creative competitions are found by multiple actors, such as a global innovation competition 2013 set up to encourage young people to demonstrate their entrepreneurial capacity by proposing innovative solutions corresponding to the needs of population. The youth movement for the climate change. Climate change creates many uncertainties about our future. Only one thing is certain: we will leave this planet to our children, young people, and future generations. The young people decide to engage in self-unemployment to solve the lack of employment. Young people are increasingly aware of the challenge and opportunities inherent in the necessary transition of low-carbon growth, and many of them are joining the global dialogue on possible solutions, getting involved and moving fast action. The effort of these young people who are working around the world to build their future by fighting climate change are an inspiration to us, to all of us. Many creative competitions are found by multiple actors, such a global innovation competition set up to encourage young people to demonstrate their entrepreneurial capacity by proposing innovation solutions corresponding to the need of population. Support measures for young people in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal. Young people's paths are very diverse and heterogeneous, but the situation of some young people is particularly worrying. According to the latest report from the International Laboratory Organization in 2013, the world had 75 million unemployed young people, aware of the challenge and opportunity inherent in the necessary transition to low carbon growth, and many of them are joining the global dialogue of possible solutions, getting involved and moving forward action. To conclude, young people today must do their own thing and challenge to the status quo, whether through entrepreneurship or community action. The young will have to recognize our responsibility to the world and work together to raising awareness and implementing the goal of sustainable development. However, this young alone will not be able to do much. It will therefore be essential that the private and public sector also get involved to support them. ONG, government, business, and population must put their differences aside and work together to build a better for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the presentation is over? Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Ahmed Yahya from GEDD, and we are sending our best regards to the Niger, and especially to Mr. Musa Halilou for his contribution to our program as the last speaker of the panel discussion. And I would like to open the floor for Q&A session for 10 minutes. Inshallah, we can entertain two or three questions if there's any in the committee. So our delegates, if you wish to address question to our speakers, please raise your hand in the Zoom so we can introduce you and so you can address your question to the speaker. Is there any in the house?
Okay, thank you.
So we have a question from Ajmal Aziz from Sri Lanka. Brother Ajmal, you can open your camera and microphone to address your question.
Okay, my question to Lamin Dabe.
Yes.
How other Muslim youths from minority countries can contribute to the development of the youth of the African community?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ajmal Aziz. Mr. Lamin, is the question well received?
Yes, the question is well received. How can Muslims in other Muslim minority countries support Africa's development? If I get the question right.
Yes, I think it's
yes.
Okay. At personal level, I always say Africa's development is a development and growth of the entire world. For me, at the moment, if you look at the amount of natural resources that Africa is exporting, for example, if Africa has capacity to produce more of that, then the world will actually be a better place. That's one. Two, looking at the number of young people who are migrating from Africa, not just formally, I mean through the informal or the irregular ways. They are going to the Middle East, they are going to Asian countries, they are also going to European countries. Some are risking their lives in the waters. Also, you tend to ask yourself, if Africa had the capacity and supported to serve and provide for the needs of those young people, we will not risk those lives. We will not lose those lives. So our development is central to our global development. Now, how do you help? One, you can, if you have knowledge or skills in any area, you can connect with the African young people and build their capacities, build their skills in the continent. That is, transfer your skills to them here so that they can be able to take charge of their own destiny. If you have resources, you can use these resources in terms of financial resources or material resources and look at a group of young Africans back in the continent here and see how you could provide them support so that they can utilize this resource, to move them from vulnerability, to enable them to have capacity to be able to take charge of their own destiny. If you cannot do that, there are social media platforms. There is a lot of, I would say, information that are correct, that are only making young people believe they cannot make it in this continent. You can use your social media handles, promote the image of Africa, but of course also beyond promotion of this image, help young entrepreneurs that are online there to promote their programs, you know, so that they may have market. You may also support, you know, if you're in Europe or in Asia and elsewhere, and there you may also start to have trade, business, so that young people will have their own agency. They can do business, trade as entrepreneurs, buy from Africa, send to your country, or you buy from your country and send to them, then you mutually benefit. Africa is a huge market. Let's look at all the other world powers heading to Africa. It was Europe, from colonialism to now to other forms of, you know, coming to Africa for trade and business. As the West step aside, China is coming in. Fair enough. They are here to make business, they are here to make trade. But what are the OIC member states doing? Africa is home to a lot of Muslims, for example. What are we doing? How do we harness the potential? It is a market, but of course, it's also a place to harness talents, skills into the production of our economy in other areas. We have labor migration with other Western countries. But how many other OIC member states have labor migration agreement with other African countries to provide them skill training, but also augment their skills, knowledge transfer, circular migration, and brain gain to come and develop Africa? So these are all ways we can do. Online, offline, financial, non-financial, capacity building, or of course, maybe financial support. But these are all areas you could support African youth to transform themselves, to support their social development, to volunteer in their communities, but also to create jobs for themselves and stay in Africa and develop the world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamin. Is there any questions in the house? Is any of our delegates wishing to? Yes, Hamza from Uganda. Hamza, can you please address your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lamin. My question is, can group work associations help youths in Africa to transform social and economical?
Is the question well received, Mr. Lamin?
If I get it well, he's saying, can any group in Africa, you know, transform cultural and social issues in Africa, if I get it properly?
I'm trying to mean, can group work or collective work, as in groups, to do some activities that are financial or social, help youth to transform in Africa, social and economically?
Yes, yes. I think groups can definitely help transform Africa. Like I said at the beginning of my presentation, until recently, Africa social setting has been traditionally communal or largely communal, meaning we work in our communities, we have family sizes and so, which are critical background in terms of our understanding of our social system, but how we engage with the wider world. So it has not been individualistic for far too long. It has been communal, it has been team. And if you look at, the power of a group, when we put our little resources together, when we put our little talents together, when we put our little, skills together, it gave us enormous power and authority and influence to change a social process. It gave us that influence to even change a political process. Much more to talk about the economic system. If we are able to put our little resources together, we can be able to support each other into either microfinance that could transform someone's life in terms of economic development, self-employment, a startup capital. But we could also use it to be able to provide for our society, be it environmental protection as a group, or be it social, moral upgrading or provision of support in that regard. Of course, to bring in people together to connect for peaceful coexistence in our society. We have seen a lot of violence. So we could use our team, our collective, to ensure that we provide solutions to those problems than individual. Individual can make impact, but the group will be better. So that, I think, is very, very possible. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry for that, for the interruption, Mr. Lamin. If you're done, I wish to ask a question from my side.
Okay.
Yeah, how can youth-led NGOs are playing effective role in the community development?
All right, thank you very much. Youth-led NGOs are playing an effective role in community development. I have seen youth-led NGOs that are, for example, follow the money, that are actually bringing accountability and fighting corruption. I have also seen youth-led community NGOs that are into climate change, planting over 1 million trees in the environment. I have seen community-led youth NGOs that establish themselves to become a kind of a chamber of commerce to advocate for the needs of young entrepreneurs. I have seen youth community-led youth organizations that are there to ensure that the health and safety of their people, especially during the pandemic. They were buying foodstuffs, giving to frontline workers, and of course also supporting the vulnerable people. What is not happening is that these community-led youth NGOs in Africa mostly don't have much capacity to go to the next level and make greater impacts, because they don't have enough support, financial support. Sometimes they do not also have technological capacity to escalate, the work they are doing and showcase it to the world that this and this is what we are doing. And sometimes also, because there are different things happening, different interests. Others are into climate change, others are into, health, others are into education. So you realize that the little resource they have are being spread very thinly on different areas, instead of if there is one single issue that they can all come together and address. So that's why I said we need to find a way to build their capacity in terms of organizing, mobilizing, and of course, in terms of showcasing what they are already doing. But we also need to find a way how they can connect within their own country and outside their own countries, and even outside the continent, so that they can showcase what they are also doing. But youth-led community NGOs has very huge impact. And I think if any one of the delegates here are not part of a youth organization, I'll encourage you to go and join one. If you are part of one, please give it all your best and share your knowledge and skills with them, and make sure that their works are amplified and their voices are heard, and you can create bigger impact. There is a lot of barakah in serving other people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamin, for your beautiful answer to my question. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up our session to prepare the closing ceremony of the Youth CFM, which will take place after 20 minutes. Before I conclude, I would like to thank again Mr. Lamin Darbo, the Vice President of ICYF, and Mr. Musa Halilu, the board member from Niger. Inshallah, if I have a chance to visit again the smiling coast of Africa, the Gambia, very soon. After this COVID is over, I wish to come back there again. So thank you very much again, Mr. Lamin. So our panel discussion on the role of African youth on community and social development is over. Now, I would like to remind our delegates to come back to session after 20 minutes, which is exactly 4 p.m. Turkey time, GMT +3, to finalize our program with the closing ceremony and with the presence of His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu, and the President of ICYF, His Excellency Mr. Taha Ayhan, inshallah, will be there. So we are expecting you all to join there. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you in 15 minutes. Thank you.